Now that students have learned some of the basic rules and properties of algebra, we're going to use some of those to simplify expressions. And basically all those rules and properties are there to simplify more complex expressions. And so here we have n plus n plus n plus n. And so what that means is an unknown number plus the same unknown number plus the same unknown number plus the same unknown number. Well, that's equal to that number multiplied by 4. So you'd say 4n. That's the simplified version. And you can put the dot in between showing multiplication. You could do 4n like this. You could do 4n like that. But most commonly, you'll just see it as 4 next to the n. So you can do it out. Like, let's say, I don't know, let's let n equal 5. Okay, so what that means is, okay, so 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5, 10, 15, 20 is obviously 20. So if n is equal to 5, then 4 times 5 obviously is 20. So it's just a way to check your work. So the simplified expression is 4n. Now here, students will see things like this, where you know a number that you know plus another number that you know plus an unknown number plus that same unknown number. Well, these two can be combined. 6 plus 2, I know that, that's 8. And I can combine these two unknown numbers. One thing plus itself is equal to that thing times 2. So the whole expression simplifies to 8 plus 2n. Obviously that's 2 times n, but again, you can leave the dot there or not. 8 plus 2n. Just want to get the dot out. Okay, and so we can begin to use some expressions or some properties of algebra to do this. Like we could use the associative property, where it could be something like this, 5 plus 3 plus x. Simplify that expression. Well, the associative property says when you're adding all these numbers together, it doesn't matter if you do 3 plus this number first or 3 plus that number first, right? The associative property says 5 plus 3 plus x can be simplified if you add the first two numbers together. So since they are like terms, as we call them, numbers that we know, we're going to combine those. 5 plus 3 is 8. We bring down the x because we still don't know that. The whole thing simplifies to 8 plus x. You could use the commutative property. The commutative property. And you could say, let's go with something like this. This one will be the two properties used together. So we say like 4 plus n plus 5. Okay. And the parentheses will be around the n plus 5. Well, the commutative property says that anything plus itself, right? A plus b equals b plus a. So let me make that look like an equal sign. Well, then n plus 5 is the same as 5 plus n. So I'm going to write 4 plus 5 plus n. And then I'm going to use the associative property, which says, this thing plus that thing first is the same as these two being added together first. So I'm going to put the parentheses around the 4 plus 5 plus n. Add those together, that's 9 plus n. The whole thing simplifies to 9 plus n. Moving right along. Okay, yeah, let's do this. 3x plus 2 plus 5x plus 1. Well, to simplify, I've clearly got things that can go together, terms that can go together. And students should know that this is a term, that's a term, that's a term, that's a term. There are 4 different terms. And students should be aware, hey, that 2 and that 1 should be combined, and the 3x and the 5x should be combined, but they're not next to each other. So I can use the commutative property to swap places with those two, because a plus b is the same as b plus a, so I'm going to rewrite it 3x plus 5x plus 2, swapping those two, the places of those two. And now I can begin to combine like terms. 3x plus 5x is 8x, and 2 plus 1 is equal to 3. 8x plus 3 is what you end up with. You can use the distributive property in these cases. You could do something like this. It's getting a little more 7th grade-ish, but I think students can handle it. 5 times, let's say, 2x plus 1, and then let's add, I don't know, a 3 out here. Well, use your distributive property. 5 times 2x is 10x plus 5 times 1 is 5 plus 3. Well, now these two terms can be combined, and you end up with 10x plus 8, and you've simplified that expression. Am I missing anything? I think that's essentially it. Oh, you can put it in word problems. You could get the perimeter of a rectangle, let's say. Let's say that this distance is unknown, but we'll say that this distance is twice that distance. So perimeter, you may remember, is the sum of all the sides added up. And so I say, well, pretend you're, I don't know, an ant walking across the top here. Well, you've gone 2x of a distance. And then when you go down, that's another x. I don't know what that distance is, but I'm not gonna let it stop me. And then I walk across the bottom, that's another 2x, so I add that on. And then I go back up that last bit, which is another distance of x. Okay, well, 2 unknown numbers plus 1 unknown number, those two combine to 3x, and those two are also going to combine to 3x, and then these two combine to be 6x. So the perimeter of the rectangle in this case is 6 times whatever that distance is. What's the value of x? Who knows? And we don't really care until somebody tells us what that value is, and then we'll care, but for right now, we just leave it as perimeter is equal to 6 times x. And yeah, that's just about as rough as it's going to get for simplifying fractions in 6th grade. Simplifying fractions, simplifying expressions, excuse me.